Hey, welcome to a new video. During the Middle Ages, it was common for people to have a sleep pattern known as segmented sleep or biphasic sleep. This sleep pattern involved two distinctive sleep patterns during the night, with a period of wakefulness in between. According to historical accounts, people typically went to bed at sunset, shortly after sunset. They would sleep for a few hours, often referred to as the first sleep. After naturally waking up, they remained awake for a few hours, during which they engaged in various activities such as praying, reading, or spending time with family. After the period of wakefulness, people would go back to sleep for the second sleep, which lasted until morning or dawn. The duration of the wakeful period varied depending on factors like personal preference, social obligations, and the availability of artificial lighting. However, the concept of two sleep periods was not limited to the Middle Ages. Historical accounts suggest that the sleep pattern was common in various cultures and eras before the widespread use of artificial lighting. It's believed that the advent of electric lighting and the modern 24/7 lifestyle gradually shifted sleep patterns toward a consolidated, uninterrupted period of sleep. It's important to note that the biphasic sleep pattern was not universal, and individual sleep habits could vary.
Are you new to this channel? Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And before we start, also like the video.
The Vibrafinger, an invention from the 1950s, was marketed as a personal gum massager, and even recommended by dentists. Advertisements for the Vibrafinger provided instructions for effective use. Users were advised to plug the device into an outlet and gently massage their gums for 60 seconds after brushing their teeth. The Vibrafinger gum massager was promoted as safe, hygienic, and non-toxic. It was claimed to promote strong and healthy gums and prevent loose teeth. According to the ads, using it will result in a sensational, invigorating, and stimulating feeling, making it a great addition to one's morning routine. However, many people were skeptical about the device, and it's since fallen out of use. During the war years, particularly during World War II, when nylon and silk stockings were scarce due to rationing and resource relocation for the war effort, women turned to a technique called painted-on stockings, or liquid stockings, to create the illusion of wearing stockings. This practice involved applying makeup or liquid foundation on a skin tone on the legs to give the impression of wearing stockings. The technique of painted-on stockings became popular as an alternative to traditional stockings. Women diligently applied makeup or liquid foundation to their legs to create the illusion of wearing stockings. To enhance the effect, some used an eyebrow pencil or eyeliner to draw a line resembling a seam along the back of the leg. Bottles of liquid stockings became available in salons and department stores in the United States, starting in August 1941. These products were promoted as a way for women to conserve silk and contribute to the war effort. Advertisements claim that an average bottle of liquid stockings contained about 24 pairs of stockings. The beauty micrometer is a device invented in the 1930s by cosmetician Max Factor. It was primarily intended for use in the film industry to adjust the problem of imperfections that became magnified when the actor's face is shown on a large screen. The inventor also saw the potential for its use in beauty salons. The first beauty micrometer was a metal instrument placed on and around the head and face. Made from flexible metal strips that adapt to a person's facial features, it could be adjusted with screws, allowing precise measurements. By analyzing the contours of a face, the beauty micrometer aimed to determine how makeup should be applied to enhance or correct facial features for film recordings. The strange device never gained widespread popularity, and it's believed that only one prototype exists. Memento mori is a Latin expression that translates to remember you must die. It's a concept that has been present throughout history and is associated with reflecting on mortality and the transient nature of life. The expression serves as a reminder of the inevitability of death and encourages individuals to contemplate the meaning and purpose of their lives. In art, memento mori is often depicted through various symbols and imagery. Common symbols include skulls, hourglasses or clocks, extinguished candles, and wilting flowers. These symbols represent the passage of time, the impermanence of life, and the reminder that death is an unavoidable reality. The concept has been explored in various cultural and religious contexts. In Christianity, for example, it's been used as a visual reminder of death and the need for spiritual preparation. It's often associated with the phrase, "Remember, man, that thou art dust, and unto dust thou shalt return," which is spoken during Ash Wednesday ceremonies. In the 17th century, a genre of still life painting called vanitas, closely related to memento mori, emerged. Vanitas painting displayed objects symbolizing the transience of life, such as skulls, hourglasses, musical instruments, books, and decaying fruit. A treadle sewing machine is a type of sewing machine that is mechanically powered by a foot pedal, moved back and forth by the operator's foot. It has a long history and is considered a classic tool in the sewing world. Treadle sewing machines were widely used in the late Victorian era, and were manufactured well into the 1950s. They're appealing to modern sewers due to their reliability and zero emissions, as they're powered by human energy, making them environmentally friendly and quiet to operate. some modern sewers enjoy using these machines for a sense of nostalgia, simplicity, and appreciation for the machine's mechanics. Shuttle sewing machines can perform various stitches, including buttonhole stitches, zigzag stitches, feather stitches, and triple stitches. A baby cage was used in the early 20th century to provide fresh air and sunlight to babies living in urban environments. The idea behind these cages was to allow babies to spend time outdoors while being safely enclosed in a cage-like structure attached to the exterior of a building, typically outside of a window. They were mainly used in densely populated cities where access to outdoor spaces and gardens was quite limited. Additionally, they were promoted as a solution for families living in apartments or apartment buildings without access to a backyard or garden. The cages were usually made of wire mesh or metal, and were designed to be securely attached to the outside of the building. The concept behind the cages were seen as a way to provide a safe space for babies to play and explore under the supervision of their parents. While they were used by some families in the early 20th century, they were not without controversy. Critics raised concerns about the safety and well-being of babies confined to these structures. The Isolator helmet was an invention by Hugo Gornsbeck from 1925, designed to reduce distractions and increase focus and productivity. The original helmet was made of wood and felt, featuring a breathing baffle and 3 glass pieces allowing users to look outside. Later, the helmet was redesigned without wood, and white lines were etched into the glass to improve visibility. The main goal of the Isolator helmet was to block out external distractions and create a concentrated environment for the wearer. This was achieved by reducing sound, limiting vision to a narrow slit, and providing an oxygen supply for breathing. Hugo claimed that the Isolator helmet was 90 to 95% effective in blocking out noises. However, prolonged use of the helmet wasn't recommended, as it could make the user drowsy. To address the issue, an oxygen tank was added to aid breathing while wearing the helmet. The Isolator helmet was widely promoted, and even featured on the cover of the magazine Science and Invention in July 1925. Despite this, the design of the helmet and the idea of isolating oneself from the environment are now considered unusual, or even frightening. Bloodletting is an ancient medical practice involving the removal of blood from a person's body. It's been practiced in various cultures throughout history, with different methods and purposes. Bloodletting was based on the belief that imbalances in the body's humors, blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile, caused illness, and removing blood could restore balance and promote healing. Historically, this was carried out using various techniques. The specific method and location of bloodletting varied depending on the perceived ailment. For example, it was believed that bloodletting from specific veins or arteries could treat conditions like fever, inflammation, or congestion. Therapeutic phlebotomy is a medical procedure in which blood is intentionally withdrawn from a person's body for therapeutic purposes. It's often used to treat conditions associated with an excess of red blood cells. The frequency and volume of therapeutic phlebotomy sessions are determined by the patient's condition and treatment goals. Toilet paper has a long history, with various materials and methods used for personal hygiene before the modern commercially available toilet paper of today. In ancient times, people used a variety of materials for personal hygiene. In ancient Rome and Greece, small oval or round pebbles or pieces of broken ceramic called passoi were used as a form of toilet paper. These have been found in the various ruins of ancient latrines. During the Middle Ages, paper for cleaning purposes began to be used in China. The first documented use of paper for toilet purposes date back to the 6th century in medieval China. However, paper was not widely available in the Western world until the 15th century. In the Western world, commercially available toilet paper emerged only in the 19th century. In 1857, Joseph Gaetti from New York marketed the first modern commercially available toilet paper, called medicated paper for the water closet. It was sold in packages of 500 sheets for 50 cents. Before the availability of modern toilet paper, people used various materials for personal hygiene. For instance, in ancient Rome, a Mediterranean sponge attached to the end of a stick was used for wiping. Farmers had access to natural options like leaves or straw. In the absence of commercially available toilet paper, people often improvised. For example, small pieces of cloth have been found in ancient sewer systems. There used to be a belief that cigarettes could cause asthma, and smoking during pregnancy was not recognized as harmful. In the past, smoking was widely accepted and even promoted in some societies. It was seen as a social activity. The tobacco industry historically ran marketing campaigns that downplayed the risks of smoking and targeted specific demographic groups, including pregnant women. In fact, some mothers intentionally smoked cigarettes to alleviate their anxiety about their pregnancy, which in hindsight doesn't make sense. Asthma is a chronic condition that affects the airways in the lungs, causing inflammation and narrowing of the airways. It's characterized by symptoms such as wheezing, coughing, shortness of breath, and a tight chest. While there is various treatments available to manage asthma and alleviate symptoms, there is currently no cure for asthma. The rotary dial phone was one of the earliest user-operated telephones to be widely produced. Before the rotary dial phone, people had to lift the receiver, wait for the operator to answer, and then tell the operator who they wanted to be connected to. The first telephone exchange was installed in New Haven, Connecticut in 1878, requiring an operator to connect lines with patch cables. Almond Brown Stroger filed the first patent for a rotary dial on December 21, 1891, which was granted on November 29, 1892. Initially, the dial featured small metal pieces on the numbers to turn it, but these were soon replaced by holes where the users could place their finger. Different countries use various pulse systems for the rotary dial. For instance, Sweden used a single pulse to represent the number 0 and 10 pulses for the number 9. New Zealand used a more complex method, where the number of pulses was 10 minus the desired number. For example, dialing a 7 would send 3 electrical pulses. The rotary dial phone became globally known after its widespread adoption in the early 20th century. It was the dominant phone from the 1930s to the 1980s, usually black in color and featuring a rotating dial with 10 holes numbered from 1 to 10. Table turning was a type of seance that became popular in America and Europe during the Victorian era. A seance is a public gathering where attempts are made to communicate with spirits. At that time, one of the phenomena involved participants sitting around a table, placing their hands on it and concentrating their thoughts on receiving answers from the spirit world. The practice of table turning typically included a small to medium-sized wooden table, a dimly lit room, and a sense of adventure or open-mindedness. Participants would place their hands on the table with fingers spread and pose questions to spirits. They would then wait for the table to move or tilt in response to the queries. Table turning became a Victorian craze in the mid-19th century, and was practiced in grand drawing rooms, middle-class parlors, and modest kitchens alike. It also attracted the attention of scientists. A man named Richard Wiseman created Victorian seances to study the power of suggestion and people's susceptibility to paranormal beliefs. In his experiments, luminous painted bells, balls, and maracas appeared to move before the participants' eyes, leading some to believe they had witnessed the supernatural. Do you think it actually worked? Let me know in the comments. Motorized roller skates, also known as power roller skates, were invented by Antonio Porello, an inventor from Lincoln Park, Michigan. Antonio founded the Motorized Skate Company of Detroit in 1955 and patented power roller skates the same year. These skates featured a heavy gasoline engine worn as a backpack, with fuel fed right to the skate for propulsion while the left foot was used for steering. However, the concept of roller skates date back centuries before motorized skates even existed. The first known use of roller skates was in 1743, during a stage performance in London, where the actors attached wheels to their footwear to mimic ice skating. But the first patented roller skate was introduced in 1760 by Belgian inventor John Joseph Merlin. Although his skates were not comparable to modern roller skates, roller skating continued to evolve over the years, with inventors like James Plimpton designing quad roller skates with 4 wheels in 1863, significantly improving maneuverability. Antonio's motorized roller skates, however, allowed for higher speeds thanks to the gas engine. During the early 19th century, it was estimated that more than 50% of the workers in some British factories were children under the age of 14. These children were employed in various industries, including textile factories, coal mines, and factories. They often had to work long hours, sometimes up to 12 hours a day, with only short breaks for meals and tea. These grueling work schedules left little time for rest, education, or enjoying their childhood. The harsh labor also hindered their growth. One of the main reasons child labor was so prevalent during that period was the fact that children could be paid significantly less than adult workers. Employers took advantage of this and profited from the desperate circumstances of families living in poverty. The working conditions for child laborers were often dangerous and detrimental to their health. For example, they were exposed to hazardous machinery, toxic chemicals, and physically demanding tasks. They also faced a lack of proper sanitation and safety measures, leading to frequent accidents. Fortunately, the movement to end child labor gained momentum in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The shower cap was a product invented in the 1970s in Germany to protect hair and makeup while showering. It was designed to keep hair and the face dry while allowing someone to wash their hair. The shower cap gained some popularity at the time because it provided a solution for people who wanted to maintain their hairstyle and makeup even while showering. It was meant to be worn during the shower to prevent water from reaching the hair and face, and was particularly useful for those who had just styled their hair or applied their makeup. The shower cap was designed to fit over the head and had a protective barrier to keep water away from the hair and face. Although it was a unique invention, its popularity seemed somewhat limited. It's not often mentioned in historical records, but it was a product of its time, reflecting the desire for convenience and practicality in personal grooming routines. The tradition of trick-or-treat has evolved over time and has its origin in various cultural practices. Going door-to-door and receiving treats can be traced back to ancient Celtic traditions. The Celts celebrated Samhain, a festival marking the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter. During Samhain, it's believed that the spirits and fairies roam the earth, and people would leave food offerings outside their homes to appease them. In medieval Europe, the Catholic Church observed All Souls' Day on November 2nd. On this day, the poor would go from door to door offering prayers from the deceased in exchange for food. This practice was known as souling, and it's considered an early precursor to modern trick-or-treat. In Scotland and Ireland, the tradition of guising emerged. Children and young adults would dress in costumes and go from house to house, where they would sing songs, recite poems, or tell jokes in exchange for treats. The tradition trick-or-treat, as we know it today, has its origin in early American Halloween celebrations. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Halloween parties and community events became popular. Children would dress in costumes and go from house to house asking for treats. A tape recorder is a recording system that uses electromagnetic phenomena to record and play back sound waves. The invention and development of tape recorders have a fascinating history. The earliest known audio tape recorder was a non-magnetic, non-electrical version invented by Alexander Graham Bell. It was patented in 1886 and uses a strip of paper coated with beeswax and paraffin. In 1909, Franklin Goodale received a patent for his invention that adapted film material for analog sound recording. The celluloid film was inscribed and played back with a stylus, similar to wax cylinders used in Edison's phonograph. German engineers refined magnetic tape in the 1930s and 1940s, developing a recorder called the magnetophone, which could record and play back sound. This was a significant advancement over earlier technologies, like the phonograph. The magnetic tape was made of a plastic base coated with a fine layer of magnetizable material that could capture audio waves. Operating the magnetophone required a good understanding of the tech and mechanics that were involved. Users had to know how to handle magnetic tape, thread it correctly, and then through the machine, as well as adjust various settings for optimal recording quality. Early tape recorders required regular maintenance to function correctly, including cleaning the tape heads, ensuring the tape transport system worked smoothly, and replacing worn-out parts. What were menstrual pads made of in the past? Here's one of the answers. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, a company called Sphagnum Moss Products produced menstrual pads made of sphagnum moss and gauze. Sphagnum moss, which has absorbent properties and antibacterial qualities, was cultivated in the Pacific Northwest and processed by the company. The moss was then wrapped in a gauze casing to create the menstrual pads. These pads, known as sphagnakins, were advertised as being more absorbent than cotton and claimed to have antibacterial properties. The packaging featured an image of a woman wearing an American Red Cross cap, referencing the product's origin as a surgical dressing. Despite these claims, the product did not achieve significant success in the feminine hygiene market. The use of the moss was a unique approach during that era. The availability of alternate materials and advancements in tech eventually led to the development of more common and commercially successful products. In the 1920s, swim masks were a unique piece of swimwear designed to protect the swimmer's face from the sun, as well as other elements while swimming. These masks were significantly different from the masks we know today. The primary purpose of the 1920s swim masks were protection against sunburn and jellyfish stings. They had a design that covered the entire face, and were made of materials that offered protection from the sun's rays. These materials were relatively simple compared to today's standards. The lenses were often made of glass, and the adjustable straps were usually made of rubber or textile to fit different head sizes. An interesting feature was the presence of water droplets on the mask's surface. These droplets acted as lenses and improved the wearer's underwater vision. Swimwear in the 1920s was generally conservative, and masks were no exception. For instance, women wore loose-fitting swimwear, with shoes and socks to maintain modesty around the pools. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, several cities in the United States passed laws known as ugly laws. These laws were discriminatory in nature and made it illegal for individuals considered unsightly, mutilated, or deformed to appear in public spaces. The purpose of these laws was to remove individuals with visible disabilities from public view. The laws were part of a broader societal movement known as eugenics. The idea was to promote the improvement of the genetic composition of the population by excluding individuals with perceived physical or mental impairments. The laws were often justified under the guise of public health and maintaining public order. However, the enforcement of these laws varied by city. Some cities imposed fines or imprisonment on individuals who violated these laws, while others relied on the police to remove these individuals from public spaces. There's a type of piercing known as a cheek piercing or dimple piercing that claims to create the illusion of dimples or enhance existing ones. The dimple maker was a device invented by Isabella Gilbert in 1936 that claimed to create and deepen dimples in the users. The device was worn tightly on the cheeks and resembled a combination of dental braces and medieval torture devices. However, the dimple maker had no effect on creating or even enhancing dimples. An advertisement claimed that continuous use would result in beautiful sets of dimples, but this claim was not substantiated. Some researchers even discovered that using it could potentially cause cancer, although this claim is highly questionable. Despite its lack of effectiveness, the dimple maker gained some popularity at the time. Beach bathing machines made their debut in the 1750s, when swimwear had not yet been invented, and most people still swam naked. A beach bathing machine, also known as a bathing box or bathing hut, was a device used in the 18th and 19th centuries to provide modesty and privacy to individuals while they changed into their bathing attire and entered the water. They were usually covered wooden carts with walls designed to be rolled into the sea. They provided a private space where the people could change their clothes and enter the water without being seen by others. The machines varied in design, from solid wooden walls to canvas walls with a wooden frame. These beach bathing machines were especially popular during the Victorian era in Britain. During that time, there were strict social norms and modesty standards, especially for women. The machines allowed women to enjoy the beach and the water while maintaining their privacy and adhering to societal expectations. The machines were often operated by attendants who would push them into the water. Once in the water, the swimmers could exit the machine and enjoy their time in the sea. Beach bathing machines were widely used in seaside resorts lining the coastline. In the 1930s, interest in solar energy and its potential applications grew. Solar baths, or solar heating systems, were one of those applications. These systems use the sun's heat to provide warmth and hot water for various purposes. An example of using solar energy at that time was the use of solar heat in Roman baths. The Roman baths used solar heat to aid their hypocaust heating system. The hypocaust system involved circulating warm water and hot air through raised floors and hollow walls to create radiant heating in the rooms. George Fredekek, an architect from Chicago, designed a remarkable structure called the House of Tomorrow, which was for the 1933 Century of Progress Exposition in Chicago. This 12-sided structure made of steel and glass is considered the first glass house in America. One of the notable features of the House of Tomorrow was the use of passive solar heating. George discovered the potential of solar heating when he found workers in the house wearing only shirts on an icy winter day before the installation of the heating boiler. Torpedo bras were a style of women's underwear that emerged in the 1940s and gained popularity in the 1950s. These bras were characterized by their cone-shaped cups, which pushed the breast forward. The shape was achieved through the stitching rather than the use of wires. The design was influenced by fashion trends of that time, and it was intended to enhance the natural shape of the female body, creating a glamorous hourglass figure. The term torpedo bra originated during World War II, reflecting the cone shape reminiscent of bullets and torpedoes. People in the 1800s were very into bicycles, specifically bicycles on water, and they had a special bike for this. This was called the amphibious bicycle. An amphibious bicycle is a human-powered vehicle that can operate both on land and water. While there were various designs and prototypes of this type of bicycle in the past, one notable example is Sadula's bicycle. This design had 4 rectangular air-filled floats for buoyancy, which were propelled by 2 fan blades attached to the spokes. Another design used a simple tricycle frame to support 3 floats that provided both buoyancy and propulsion. These amphibious bicycles allowed riders to seamlessly transition between land and water without the need for modifications. Some designs even made it possible to deflate the bike and have the passenger carry it, which was very convenient for transport. Although amphibious bicycles from the 1800s were innovative and showcased the creativity of inventors of that time, they did not gain widespread popularity. In the early 20th century, there were cases where children were sent through the mail using the parcel post service in the United States. This practice, although rare, occurred at a time when regulations regarding what could and could not be sent through the mail were not defined. The introduction of the parcel post service on January 1, 1913 allowed Americans to send packages weighing up to 11 pounds through the U.S. postal system. Some parents took advantage of the service and attempted to send their children or relatives to other destinations. One notable example was a couple from Ohio who sent their newborn baby via parcel to their grandmother's house, which was approximately 1 mile away. The parents paid 15 cents for the postage stamps and insured the child for $50, after which the mail carrier safely delivered the baby to its grandmother. Regulations were eventually established to prevent further child mailings, and by 1920, the practice was officially banned. It's worth noting that the children sent through the mail were typically accompanied by postal workers and were not simply packaged and sent as ordinary parcels. What if we told you that we could solve all your problems? Well, at least if your problem is a fly buzzing around your room. The fly gun, also known as the bullseye sharpshooter rubber band pistol, was invented by Dr. Claude Bunton, a dentist and hunter from Wyoming. Dr. Bunton was known for inventing various gadgets, including a boat trailer for sportsmen. He received his first patent for the bullseye in 1924 and made the pistols in his workshop behind the dental building. The fly gun was primarily intended for indoor use and could consistently hit flies up to a distance of 1.8 to 2.4 meters. The pistol had a carrier that held a single shot, and when the trigger was pulled, the rubber band propelled the carrier forward, launching the shot from the pistol. Although the fly gun was popular as a toy pistol in the late 1920s, it's important to note that it was not a firearm, but was only designed to shoot small projectiles indoors. Human zoos, or colonial exhibitions, were public displays in which people from different cultures and ethnicities were presented as living exhibits. These exhibitions were widespread from the 19th century to the early 20th century, and were mainly organized by Europe and North America. The purpose of human zoos were to satisfy the curiosity of the European public, and reinforce ideologies of racial superiority and cultural dominance. Indigenous people from Africa, Asia, the Americas, and other regions were often brought to Europe and North America to be exhibited in these zoos. They were presented as exotic and primitive for the entertainment and education of spectators. The exhibitions were designed to create a naturalistic environment, often with reconstructed villages or habitats, intended to suggest the native countries of the exhibited individuals. However, these people were subjected to objectification, dehumanization, and exploitation. Additionally, they were often forced to perform cultural rituals, dances, or other activities for the amusement of the audience. By the mid-20th century, human zoos had largely disappeared. The typewriter is a mechanical device used for writing, and it was a revolutionary invention that transformed the way people communicated and conducted business. Christopher Latham Sholes, a printer and journalist from Wisconsin, was the first person to patent the typewriter on June 23, 1868. A notable precursor to the modern typewriter was the typographer, invented by William Austin Burt in the 1820s, although it was not widely adopted for commercial use. Sholes' typewriter, known as Sholes and Glidden, had type arms arranged in a circular basket under the printing surface, and the typist had to lift the carriage to see their work. This early typewriter required the typist to press the keys and then lift the carriage to view the typed text. Successful commercial production of typewriters began with the writing ball, invented by the Danish pastor Rasmus Malling Hansen in 1870. This well-designed device resembled a pincushion and contributed to the popularity of the typewriter. Throughout the 19th century, inventors across Europe and America experimented with writing machines. Instead of a keyboard, the operator would turn a knob and select a letter, and then press a lever or a key to print it on paper. The typewriter continued to evolve over the years. In 1961, IBM made a revolutionary breakthrough with the invention of the IBM Selectric typewriter, which used a spherical type ball instead of traditional type arms. Foot binding was a cultural practice that existed in China for centuries, primarily from the 10th century to the early 20th century. It involved compressing and reshaping the feet of girls with the aim of making them as small as possible. Foot binding was considered an attractive feature and a symbol of beauty and social status. It was mainly practiced by upper class, but later adopted by lower classes as a means to improve their social prospects. However, this process was painful and had long-lasting consequences. The binding process included bending the toes under the foot, breaking the arc, and tightly wrapping the foot with bandages. The bindings were tightened over time, causing the foot to fold at the arc and the toes to be pressed under the sole. Foot binding resulted in several physical deformities and limitations, making it difficult for women to walk and leading to lifelong challenges. Due to these reasons, it was eventually banned in China in 1912, as a result of changing societal circumstances. Snow goggles were used 2,000 years ago by Inuit hunters to protect their eyes from the sun's reflections on the snow. These goggles were designed to prevent snow blindness, which is essentially a sunburn of the eyes that can affect vision for several days if precautions aren't taken. Snow blindness, scientifically known as photokeratitis, can be caused by the intense ultraviolet radiation reflected from the snow. The Inuit, as well as other indigenous groups in Alaska like the Yupik and Aleut, had invented these snow goggles made from bone, ivory, or wood to address this problem. They made small slits that reduced the field of vision and the amount of ultraviolet radiation reaching their eyes. These goggles allowed them to spot their prey on ice surfaces and in the water by reducing the distortion of the natural color spectrum, unlike modern sunglasses. These type of snow goggles have been found in Inuit archaeological sites up to 2,000 years old, indicating their long history and importance in the region. Although the materials used to make snow goggles have changed over time, with modern versions often made of plastic, the vintage design with thin slits remains consistent. Witch trials and public executions are dark chapters in history that reflect the religious beliefs and legal systems of their time. Witch trials were a series of interrogations and prosecutions that took place in various parts of the world, particularly in Europe and colonial America, between the 15th and 18th centuries. Accusations of witchcraft were often based on superstition. Women were mainly accused of entering into pacts with the devil and practicing harmful magic. The Salem witch trials of 1692 in colonial Massachusetts are among the most well-known cases. More than 200 people were accused, and 20 were executed, mostly by hanging. The accused faced harsh conditions awaiting their trial, including imprisonment, torture, and inhumane treatment. Public executions were a common form of punishment throughout history, often used as a means to deterrence and public spectacle. They were frequently attended by large crowds, making them public events. Life jackets have evolved over time to provide better safety and buoyancy for people in the water. In the early 20th century, rubber and batteries were used in life jackets for inflation and lighting purposes. These early vests could even send and receive SOS messages. Before synthetic foam became popular, a lightweight material called Kopek was used in life jackets. Kopek is a fluffy material derived from the seed pods of a tree, and slowly replaced cork as the primary filling material. Inflatable life jackets were also used during World War II. In the mid-19th century, the first modern life jackets made their appearance. A notable design was a cork vest created by Captain Ward, an inspector for the Royal National Lifeboat Institution in England. Significant changes were made to life jacket requirements after the sinking of the cargo ship Carl D. Bradley in 1953. The incident revealed that crew members who fell into the water slipped out of their life jackets. As a result, life jackets were redesigned to prevent unconscious persons from accidentally slipping out when submerged in water. In the past, there have been cases where radioactive materials were used in consumer products. For example, Radithor was a popular energy drink in the early 20th century that contained small amounts of radium dissolved in distilled water. It was advertised as a remedy for various ailments, but was eventually found to be deadly after investigation. The American athlete Eben Byers, who drank up to 3 bottles of the substance daily for years, died from it in 1932. Another product was Thoradia, a face cream that also contained radioactive substances. It was manufactured and sold in the 1930s to 1960s. Radium was also a harmful product used in toothpaste in the early 20th century. At that time, it was believed that radium had health benefits, and it was incorporated into various consumer products, including toothpaste and cosmetics. The idea behind using radium in toothpaste was that the radioactive properties of radium would have a brightening effect on teeth. A well-known case is that of the Radium Girls, who worked in factories where they painted watch dials with radium-based paint. These workers suffered severe health consequences, including damage to bones and tissues as a result of ingesting and handling the radioactive paint. There's also been cases where radium was added to drinking water. In the early 20th century, there were toys that contained radioactive materials, such as glow-in-the-dark paint. Damid radioactive toothpaste was a toothpaste brand produced in Germany. It was produced from the 1920s until World War II. It was known for containing thorium, a radioactive material, and is considered an example of radioactive quackery. The toothpaste was advertised as having a special biological healing effect due to its radium rays. It claimed to increase the resistance of teeth and gums by charging the cells with new life energy and providing excellent prevention and healing effects on gum diseases. The effect of Damid toothpaste included bold claims about its benefits, such as polishing enamel and hindering the destructive effects of bacteria. Damid toothpaste was part of a broader trend of promoting radioactivity as a cure for various ailments. At the time, other radioactive products were also available to the public, including radioactive water jugs, children's toys, and even butter. Could you imagine a worse product to put on your skin, let alone brush your teeth with? In the 18th century, it was common for wealthy landowners to encourage people to live in seclusion as garden hermits. These individuals lived in specifically designed caves or small structures in gardens, located on the extensive estates of landowners. They were part of a trend that emerged in response to the English landscape garden tradition and the influence of philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who advocated a return to nature. It involved wealthy landowners hiring individuals to dress as druids, grow their hair long, and live in rustic conditions. Garden hermits were often chosen for their eccentricity and their ability to entertain guests with their unusual appearance and behavior. They usually lived in seclusion and spent their days practicing activities such as gardening, reading, or playing musical instruments. Some garden hermits were even known to perform simple tasks like sweeping or maintaining the garden. Although the trend of garden hermits was primarily found in England, it also spread to Scotland and Ireland. The Ice Cube mask from 1947 was an experimental mask created by Hollywood makeup artist Max Factor Jr. The purpose of the mask was to cool actresses backstage on hot days without ruining their makeup. This mask was designed to give Hollywood stars the appearance of having not drunk the night before, reducing the appearance of a hangover when they appeared on camera the next day. It was particularly effective because other cooling methods, such as cold water or other cleansers, would spoil the makeup. The bizarre aspect was that the Ice Cube mask consisted of actual ice cubes placed on the face. In the context of skincare, it was thought that cold therapy helped reduce swelling, tighten the skin, shrink pores, and reduce inflammation. The cooling effect could also help with headaches and sinus issues. Some people found it peculiar and wondered if a mask was actually necessary for cooling and reducing signs of a hangover. The cook-and-wash refrigerator was a unique appliance advertised in 1952. It was designed to combine the functions of a fridge, a sink, and a stove into one compact unit. However, it didn't perform well in keeping the contents of the fridge section cool. The sink was also described as small, and it's unclear how many of these units were actually sold. The concept of combining multiple appliances into one unit seemed convenient, but it was criticized for performing multiple tasks poorly, instead of excelling at one function. Some people found the idea of having a sink and stove so close to the fridge's motor potentially as unsafe. It's worth mentioning that this was not the only attempt to combine appliances in the mid-20th century. There were other similar innovations at the time, as people were looking for ways to make kitchen appliances more compact and efficient. Professional human alarm clocks were individuals hired in the past to wake others at a specific time. This person used a stick to knock on the doors or windows of clients, sometimes even with a pea blower for windows on higher floors. They didn't leave until they were sure the customer was awake. This profession was especially popular in large industrial cities like Manchester and London, and it was often practiced in the late 1920s and in some regions even until the 1950s. Professional human alarm clocks also didn't leave until they were sure the person had woken up. This service was useful for people who had trouble waking up or had important obligations that required them to wake up at specific times. What do you find the strangest thing that was done in the past? Let me know in the comments. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos we've made, click one on the screen or take a look at the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.